she not only was the ancestor in a very specific lineage of abstraction, but even the people who were erased before her, who were part of this mediumistic art that she didn't invent even that. She's part of a larger lineage that was predominantly women, so it didn't exist in the art world.
It's so crazy just that the way that we allow stories about certain things to just completely define culture.
I know.
It's wild.
It is. But it gives us really juicy stuff to talk about and think about.
Welcome to the Hidden History of Magic, WitchTV, where we share how you can do the magic behind each episode.
Inspired by last week's episode about Hilma of Klint, today's conversation is all about how we channel with spirit to create art.
We'll talk about the sacredness of art being just for you, how you can connect with your guides to support your work, and why we support you cutting your bangs to timeline jump.
You already know the history.
Let's dive in to the magic. Welcome, everyone, to WitchTV. I'm Erin Bagwell, and I'm here with
Rhiannon Houch.
And we are so excited to dive into our little topic here. You know the history, and now we're going to dive into the magic, all about the creative process and channeling and connecting to spirit. Rhiannon, I know you had your cards in front of you. Do you want to pick us a little card to start our...
I do have my cards. Oh, I could. Yeah, about art.
Yeah. What does spirit want us to know to guide us in this conversation about creativity and the way spirit and art channels through people? I have a lot to say on this topic, and I'm really excited to talk about it because I feel like I've been dancing with spirit creatively for a long time, and I think there's a lot of fun things to get into.
I very much believe that any kind of art and creativity is a form of channeling. Okay, so what's really interesting about this is I drew the 5 of Wands, which in this deck is this really beautiful tower of people doing acrobatics in front of the sun. It's funny because the 5 of Wands can be about competition, but this card specifically looks so much more like collaboration.
Yeah.
They're making a really beautiful shape in the way that they're holding each other up and surrendering and bending into what could feel really unstable, these movements, because they're balancing.
Yeah, they look like cheerleaders for people who can't see. It's almost like a tower of people like being configured together. Yeah.
Yes. And we'll obviously post a photo of it in the Patreon. But it's, people who are holding each other up, being a little bit vulnerable, but all working together. And it creates something beautiful. You can zoom in on any one of their body positions and it creates really interesting, beautiful lines. Or you can zoom out and see the whole and it's its own pyramid or structure that's beautiful as well. This feels like a message reminding us that what feels like competition, I think, especially in capitalism, if we want to go there, what feels like it could be competition is actually collaboration. Even thinking about I was an athlete in high school. And one of the things that was really fun about playing sports, especially sports with friends, is that competition can be really fun because when it's playful, you know, like even just like talking a little bit of shit or doing little barbs, it still presses you to go a little bit further, or you end up propping each other up in a way that can be really fun. As long as you're not tearing each other down or sabotaging each other, it becomes like a rising tide raises all ships.
Well, it's fun to race against somebody. You know?
It feels so good. Yeah, because then you're also in it together.
You're pushing each other to excellence, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And that kind of reminds me of the 4-minute mile. Do you know that whole fact about the 4-minute mile?
No.
So for a long time, no one could run a 4-minute mile. And then one day, one person broke that barrier.
And then
suddenly,
did. Wow.
And so we kind of need, it's almost like a permission slip. I love this concept of permission slips from Bashar because it does become a permission slip. It opens your creativity. And it's something that we've talked about before, that even just being around other psychic people, it feels like it opens a portal or opens the crown in an interesting way. This feels like allowing the competition to actually be collaboration. Even if you are literally in competition, in a race with someone, it's still a collaboration because you're playing together.
It reminds me, so one of my eras was being a documentary filmmaker, which is something I still consider myself to be, but not full-time in the sense that I was kind of in the mid-2000s. 2016, I produced a documentary called Dream Girl about female entrepreneurs that premiered at Obama's White House.
There was no big deal.
And there was a gal in LA named Sarah Moshman, who I'm still very good friends with, and she produced a couple of films about different women's stories. She did one about women in NASA. She's done them about women athletes who are boating, like all these beautiful films. And it's funny, I really viewed her as competition in a way that like fueled and inspired me. You know, if she could get a deal with Netflix, I was like, well, maybe I, need to push myself a little bit harder or dream a little bit bigger. And so it felt really good there's a lot of female filmmakers. I don't want to diminish, what women are producing, but it's hard for us to find each other and connect. And especially as an independent filmmaker in New York, I was in kind of a silo by myself in a lot of ways making my films. And it was so great to have somebody that I could like look to and think about, and that really kind of pushed and inspired me to be better and to be the best, because that's what I wanted to be.
I love that. Yeah. And I think that that's the point, because the other thing is that as you get inspired by other people or see what other people have access to, I think it makes it feel all closer and possible. But then you can also start to see the ways that you might literally collaborate with someone or talk about like mentioning people's names in rooms that they're not in. And there's something about that too, where I feel like I love to I have friends that do make very powerful decisions. And I love being able to share interesting people and interesting names that they maybe haven't heard of, but now they can pay attention to.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something really fun about that. And maybe in a way, it makes me feel like I'm connected to a much larger web. Instead of it being like, well, if I do that, then it's not like my friend's going to cast me. But you know what I mean? Like that's not going to happen. But if there's someone
we heard you were in a scene in Basic, so you'll be on the silver screen soon. Everyone can watch you.
Yes.
But going back to this idea of like our relationship to spirit and how spirit kind of works creatively, I remember specifically like one afternoon seeing, kind of to your point, like what other people are doing, what other people are up to, and then kind of feeling those pangs of jealousy or, maybe motivation, inspiration. It comes in all different forms. And then really having to sit down with my journal and being like, what do I want? What do I see? How do I want my team to grow? Or how do I want my career to blossom? And really getting clear with me and spirit. I think it's so easy to get confused about what you want and what your dreams are. And it's something actually I've been thinking about a lot recently. It's like, well, how much money do I want to make? And what do I want my house to look like? And where do I want to live? And, all of these things that are available to us when we dream and manifest. But I need to be really, really clear with myself about it. Like it's something I'm really processing.
Yes. It does feel like that's a huge collective theme right now, too, is getting really, really clear on what you want. And I think the distance between what I should have versus what I want is very confusing right now. And I think it's coming to a head. And even this idea of, I think there's a lot of pressure creatively to have to monetize everything.
Yeah.
Even just to do something for the sake of doing something, there's this pressure. I've felt the pressure I love to make earrings. I do beading. And so I bead earrings. And for me, it's a way to connect with my hands, to connect with my lineage. It's a way to connect with my ancestors. It's a way to open up. It's very meditative for me. And there's color and I can wear them. And it's so fun when people are like, oh, I love your earrings. And it's like, I made them.
You are such an earring girl. I feel like that's one of your visual tells for sure.
Oh, yeah. Today, I'm not wearing earrings I made, but they were made by India de Beaufort. I felt a lot of pressure to have to do it because I like doing this and I spend so much time doing this. Do I need to sell them?
Yeah, start an Etsy shop.
Yeah. And instead, I like to gift them. which I guess technically saves me money, but I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there's all of this pressure of like, well, what's the end game for this? Instead of just being able to like, well, I'm meditating. Even thinking about like, okay, so I have this picture that was channeled yesterday as part of our Hilma episode, which you heard about.
Yeah.
Or it was in the bonus. So if you didn't hear about it, go check out the bonus. I even think I felt self-conscious about sharing it because I'm not an artist and I haven't taken classes and like, oh, this is a thing that felt really fun to make, but does that mean I have to develop the skill and the craft so that it can become something eventually?
Yeah.
Instead of just allowing ourselves to be creative in the moment, because the creativity in and of itself is the thing.
I know there's so much pressure to like squeeze the juice out of something, you know?
Yes.
And I feel that deeply around things that I'm passionate about and curious about. And it's such a dance to know kind of what to really move forward in. You know, I went to this library exhibition about the suffragettes and spiritualism and kind of their interlinking. A woman was doing a Q&A about it, a seminar, if you will. And I left that thinking like, oh, I need to produce a documentary about this. And I need to and I felt so fired up. And I was like, for, 3 hours, I was like, I'm going to chase this, idea or this thing. You let it sit and you let it marinate. And my kind of rule is that it has to kind of keep tugging at you. And I certainly want to make another film about spirituality and witches at some point of my life. But it's like I haven't found that link yet that's really going to like keep the fire going. And I think sometimes we can get confused creatively because we can feel really good making the earrings and doing it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be like our whole life, right?
Right.
And when can we give ourselves permission just to like doodle and to play and to paint? And, I think there's something so sacred about it being just for you.
Yes, and being bad at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Chris had mentioned that in the episode too, that like Hilma studied spiritualism for 10 years before, really taking her channeling seriously. Like we don't give space to the practice part of it.
Exactly. And she went to a fine arts academy. And so you spend all day, every day learning very specific technique. People criticize your technique so that you can get better. You have to stare at models all day and recreate them, or you're lined up and compared to your competition. So there's all of these ways where it really refines you under a pressure cooker, where if you're just like a hobbyist who feels the pull, because I do think that creativity is what's very human about us. That is alchemy, right? Which I think the artists of that time were trying to get to with this idea of abstraction, is trying to connect to the formless beyond the form, to the bigger, greater feeling behind what something is. Like even thinking about movies, it's very literally a form in front of you, but what we're really trying to get to is, how do I describe this feeling that I have, this question that I have, this experience that I had? How can I make it make sense? And let me put these characters through, in a pressure cooker, through these tests and obstacles so I can try to understand myself or humanity better.
Yeah, I always would say when I was talking about my film Dreamgirl that the best documentaries always ask questions. They're always seeking an answer. And so everything kind of revolves around the heart of that. And perhaps to your point, that's, like any creative work is kind of opening space for us to receive information and messages. And something that's kind of resonating or coming through for me is when I make something, I kind of try to treat it like an energetic being by itself, which I actually don't think I've done yet for this project. So maybe that's why it's coming through. But, I would have conversations with my films telepathically. I would, channel information from them. I would try to really serve what that energy wanted. And a lot of that felt really seamless in like editing and creating and moving through. But I had to have some big conversations about like how we were going to share the film and the premieres of them. and how to honor what the film wanted. So I will say that's part of my process and something I'm interested in doing for us as well with this podcast.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that's really helpful to think of the project as something outside of yourself, because in a way it depersonalizes it in a way that's important, because it is its own entity and it is a baby. Mm-hmm. But also it can represent an idea that you have, but it doesn't necessarily represent you. So if someone doesn't get it or someone doesn't like it, it doesn't have to be a personal thing. It's just its own. I don't know. There's something really valuable about externalizing it, but then also because it's outside, you can be in dialogue and relationship with it instead of like, this is a piece of my soul or whatever.
Yeah, it feels, I've always kind of hated the term like it's your baby, but I do think that in a lot of ways it is right in that you're creating almost like a soul or an entity, and your job is really to mother it through.
Yes, and let it be its own person.
Yeah. Because to your point, like getting feedback or creative kind of commentary is really, it's so funny when I would do screenings with people and then they would come up and talk about things that sometimes wouldn't be in the film. But in a way that hit them energetically so that they could see or process some information. Yes. Like everything really goes back to whatever the person's thinking or feeling. It was such a weird mirror.
Yes.
And a really beautiful thing to just kind of bear witness to.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think that's all we can hope for with art, right?
1,000,000%.
I did have this experience once of working a very mundane job of filling like gift bags for an event. And the other person who was filling the bags with me, his graduate thesis was on immersive theater, but specifically focusing on catharsis. And he talked a lot about catharsis. We had many hours to talk about catharsis.
Sure you did.
Yes. And I was eating it up. I'm like, yes, if someone's got a special interest, I want to hear everything about it. Like, let's go into it. One of the things that he said, I had never considered it, but it makes so much sense, especially in a world where a lot of stories are being written so that you can watch them with a second screen, or you know what I mean? Like where things are a little more on the nose these days. Yeah. One of the key ingredients for catharsis, which catharsis is when you have an emotional release in response to art.
Okay.
Right? And emotional response or emotional release in response to art, to me, is what energy work is. We're releasing trapped emotions, right? And part of why we have to do healing, somatic healing, energetic healing, is because we've got all these trapped emotions that we've shoved aside or don't know how to process or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so in that way, especially film and TV and theater and story to books of all kinds, any piece, a beautiful painting can move us into catharsis, right? Which is emotional release, which is a form of energy healing and forgiveness, really. I think that when we think about releasing stuff, to me, that's the definition of forgiveness. So it creates this space. Catharsis is so important for healing.
Wow.
Well, a key ingredient is revelation. And so people
like an aha moment.
Yes, which means when someone is telling you what to think or how to think about it or what the point is, it doesn't leave a lot of space for revelation. But when you're asking questions instead, when you're inviting people to lean in, or even if you're manipulating someone to go like, oh, wait, I think this is what it's about. I think this is where this is going. It creates space for that revelation and people can resonate on a deeper level because they're invited to participate into it instead of passively watching. And that's it. That's all they get.
Well, yeah, I mean, bringing it back to great art, it's like for somebody to create something that gives you that different perspective, that different insight, that different emotional anchor that fuels you, that gives you permission. I mean, I just love experiencing that and I love being a part of that dialogue. And there's something so sacred about, making things and putting things out there and kind of having it kind of alchemize. And just thinking about Hilma's work specifically, in her documentary at the end of it, they show on the screen all these people looking at her work. And it filled me with such an immense emotion because I was like, wow, this woman's art was never appreciated, was never seen. Eyes were never laid upon it. People are weeping looking at her work, and just the emotional responses were so gorgeous. And it's fascinating that for her specifically, she had to kind of live her whole life as kind of this black sheep of her family and misunderstood in the art world, to then so many years later, have people finally be able to walk those halls and see her work. It's such an extraordinary story and such a crazy reminder of like how we don't have, speaking of like giving something up and having something come through you, like a child, we don't have control over what happens next. We don't have control over how our art is going to resonate or how it's going to hit people or when.
Yeah, that is a tough one. But even thinking about the story of Hilma.
What do you mean it's a tough one?
It is a tough one
Just
to feel.
That she didn't get seen.
Yeah, to feel invisible, to feel like, am I chasing frivolity? I feel like is an idea. Should I be, I don't know, working in finance? Should I be more responsible? Should I be, you know what I mean? At least when you have the confirmation of reception, it can be easy to go like, no, this is my life's work. This is my life's work. Because an audience is such a big part of art.
Yeah.
Even if it's just an audience of one. Yes. Very complicated part. Especially if something is going through you. It's like channeling. For me, it's really hard to do energy work on myself or channel for myself because there's nowhere for it to go. It's just going through me back into the earth.
Yeah.
When I do it for other people, it's easy for me to just let it flow through me because I'm giving it to you. Right. And it made me realize that like, I love doing energy work, but I only get to do it if there's an audience, if there's someone there that I get to do a session for.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
And just like art, I can't force it on other people. Like they have to consent to witness it. I can't just force people into reading my play or whatever either. Right. And in order to do a play, I need people who are interested enough to watch it. And so I often feel constrained as an artist because of the art that I've chosen to do is highly collaborative and requires an audience. I guess I would think of my energy work as an art too.
I think so.
Because it does feel like storytelling. It feels like it's an immersive experience is what I'm trying to create with it. And so I treat it like I'm doing art. But it does feel really hard to do it. Like it exists, but if a tree falls in the forest or whatever, right? It exists, but if no one reads the play, if no one watches the play, if no one's moved by the play, does it exist?
Yeah. Well, I think we're talking about the value of something, and that feels very tricky because in my experience, so I produced 2 documentaries. The first one was Dream Girl about female entrepreneurs in New York City. Very indie popular, indie splash. That's how I met Oprah. I was in an Apple ad. I got to travel around the world. It was very glamorous, very successful in, a sense of being seen for the art, having the art be seen. However, then my second documentary, Year One, is about postpartum depression and surviving my first year of motherhood. And that's a better film, period. That's a more personal film. It's a more beautiful film. And I think, not to take away the energy of Dream Girl, but I was a first-time filmmaker, and my second work was better. I hope my third and my fourth and my fifth work are going to be better, but it wasn't as popular. We premiered the film at the height of the pandemic with Motherly. 60,000 women watched it online, which was incredible.
Amazing.
But it didn't have that flash of success. I did one in-person screening for Year One, and that was it. It's interesting because in my heart, in my soul as an artist, I know in a lot of ways that film also saved my life because it allowed me to channel some of the depression and overwhelm and identity crisis I was feeling as a first-time mother into remembering who I was as an artist, as a creator. And so it's funny. It's like if you were to look on paper, Dreamgirl is a more successful film. It made more money, it had more accolades, but it's not a better piece of art.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean when you can create things that are gorgeous and impactful and resonated that don't get seen, that don't get, produced in that way, that don't have the light as Hilma's did? Sometimes that's the process.
Yes.
It's not a guarantee to make good things that it's going to be.
And this is so much like life too, where, I feel like most spiritual teachings and my guides are constantly telling me
what your guides want.
just let go of the outcome. The outcome doesn't matter. It's not about the outcome. It's just because then one day it's all going to fall into place and it's all going to make sense. And there's a part of me that I think, because of my trauma, I have witnessed people who everything went wrong and it was hard and then they died. And that was it. That was just the entirety of the life. And so it becomes this thing where maybe, because I'm so stuck. This is why non-attachment is so important too, because this life is such like a blink within a blink within a blink of the entirety of my soul's experience. But I do like this life. I do want this life. I do love this avatar. And it would be fun to experience certain things that I think what I bristle at is that I feel so powerless to an outcome. And that if I want to keep doing this thing, like Hilma's biography, she talks about how, Hilma's doing these 12-foot paintings and she needs to buy paints. So she has to do something for work. It looks like she did a lot of paintings. And so she got the paints that she needed and the money came from somewhere. So she was always, I guess that's what abundance is, right? Is like she always had enough to do exactly what she was meant to do. And so I think that that's the reminder that I keep getting. And the human me doesn't know how to keep doing it if I'm not getting the response right away. Or, you know what I mean? I've failed a lot too. I think it's like, do I take the failure as a sign to pivot? Like we're told in capitalism too? Or do I just do I have to double down and figure out what I want in my heart of hearts? What excites me in my heart of hearts, regardless of what the external world is telling me, and just keep doing it. Because the thing that the guides say is that if just one person experiences something from the ripple of its creation, that's it. That's all. You did it. You did your job. Because maybe you're only meant to create a ripple for one person that sets off a chain reaction that you have no idea what it is.
Yeah, I think that's the negotiation we make as artists every day. And I certainly have had start and stops. I probably started and stopped 8 other films that never made it. I never got the funding for, that couldn't move the rock up the mountain. And I think that's part of the dance, is like we have to be so in love with whatever the project is that we're going to take the risk, we're going to take the time, we're going to take the energy to kind of make it and manifest it. And something I haven't shared on the podcast, which I should be talking about more, is I'm writing a book, my first book. And I'm not a writer. I don't consider myself a writer. And so when I got tapped for, sharing this story and what kind of started as a channel, as a flow, as really kind of like a legacy for my daughters to know some of the spiritual lessons that I've learned, I've had such an awkward relationship with spirit ever since, because I'm like, guys, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a podcaster, like, I'm not a writer. I don't like sitting by myself, working on this by myself. It's so isolating to write things and to have faith. And I've been working on this for over a year. I have 13 chapters. I have, like 40,000 words that I'm just, processing and percolating. And it's such an awkward experience because every time I talk to my guides, they're like, yeah, and actually they just pushed my timeline forward a year. So this year I thought I was going to be finishing it. And they're like, no, you're going to keep working on it and you're going to keep adding to it. So it's been such an awkward relationship of starting a new medium, and sharing and writing through that.
That's amazing. And actually, you are bringing up a really interesting point, because you're talking about the vulnerability of doing art, of being called into this new medium, of knowing that you need to do this thing, that this thing has to flow through you and you can't help but do it because it feels important, regardless of whatever resistance may be showing up. And you also mentioned that you're in conversation with your guides about this frequently.
Yes.
I have this relationship where I do feel like I'm channeling art, but I don't think to talk to my guides about my art ever. You know what I mean?
Why not?
I know. Can you talk more about what that looks like for you? How do you do it? What do you ask?
Yeah. So I will say this is probably the first project as an open psychic medium that I've had the ability to do this. So I haven't been able to do this for past projects. And it's interesting because, sometimes like we get a little idea in our human minds and then we just try to like ram it forward. I feel like so excited that for this journey, I get to kind of just listen and not try to force. And I share that because one of the things that my guides and I have been talking about is timeline. And at the beginning of this year, when I was doing all my like January New Year's Eve work, my word for the year was book. And I had been getting really, really strong energy from my guides that the book was going to come out. And what I do on a very practical level is when I'm meditating, I write out questions. So usually before I drop into meditation, I'll ask, usually it's 3 is kind of what my brain can handle. And I'll be very specific, like, what do I need to know about the book this week? Or what's going on with the timeline? Or what's whatever you want to know about your life. It can be very open. You want to know about money, relationships, something you're waiting on, health news, whatever, you can ask. And then I go into meditation and either I get the answer in meditation or I'll come out and I'll free write. And I'll just channel whatever spirit has given me. And so, interestingly enough, after the Epstein files released and kind of our culture went through this ontological shock of like, where are we? What's happening? How is the world being made? And my guides were like, no, now we're pushing it. And so it's interesting. It's like a cultural response. And it feels like once the dust settles, then as we kind of get more grounded, then next year it's looking like that's going to be my timeline as of right now. But I'm in the deep editing process. So I'm still going to need a couple of months to refine and tweak and do a lot of rewrites. A lot of the first draft was just me channeling. So it was me like channeling the information that I wanted and then kind of going back and setting like a tone and adding my personality to like adding in.
Yeah. For everyone listening who feels like you can't write because it's not coming out fully formed perfect, writing is rewriting. Writing is letting it flow through you and then shaping the clay.
And rewriting again.
Writing is rewriting. Yes, thank you. For even saying that these are the layers that you have to look through. It's like French braiding, I think, sometimes when it comes to writing, where you have to weave together all of these pieces. And sometimes you mess up and have to fix it. Or sometimes it's like, I'll bobby pin it. It's fine. But you're like finding a way through all, like weaving together all these elements. So that's great.
And I will say, the book is called A Grimoire for My Daughters. And essentially it's stories and insights. And every chapter is about one specific thing. So like, for example, the first chapter is like how to connect to spirit. So the whole first chapter is that process energetically of how I do it and how my body does it and teaching the girls how to do it themselves. Then I've written these other little stories, kind of more memoir-esque of like how I opened up my psychic abilities and what it meant to me to come out of the broom closet. So then I'm adding in these things that then I have to like actually write and are not channeled. So it's been kind of a weird dance of kind of melding these two things together.
I was going to ask how much of it feels channeled versus like writing. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like it's a different voice when it comes through channeled versus your, okay.
And I will say there are certain sections and like quotes that are specifically from spirit and I annotate them that this is spirit because it sounds so different from me and my voice.
Oh, interesting. I actually love when books are like that because I have read some channeled books. Opening the Channel, which is what taught me the process of channeling. They do that where part of it is them, the channels, giving a how-to, and then the other part is what their guides, their channeled guides, are saying about the process from their perspective. And all of that's like italicized so that because it is such a clear, distinctive experience and voice.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny kind of thinking about like Hilma, and I think there's so many different ways to do it, right? It can be like you're a direct channel and you're just giving what spirit is giving you, and then I'm doing kind of like a dance with it of like adding and incorporating, and it just depends on like how high your volume is in the conversation. Because I still believe when I'm writing, even if it feels like it's more energetically coming from me, that we're still in conversation with something, right? We're still getting the ideas and the information, and it's still a flow. So just kind of depends.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because even thinking about psychic work or doing a psychic reading, a lot of times it'll come through as someone will ask something or something will come up and I'm like, I don't know why I feel compelled to share this story. And they're not telling me what to say in the story, but they're just telling me, or it's not even anyone's telling me. I just feel pulled to go, oh, let me tell you about this one time that this thing happened. I don't know why I'm telling you this. But in that way, if I'm thinking about catharsis, it leaves space for revelation. It leaves space for someone to project ideas or resonate or feel seen. Because I love art because it lets you see a different perspective. Because all our brains work differently and we don't even think about that. We just assume that brains are brains and our brains all work the same. And we're only now discovering in the last 6 years even. Well, so when I went to undergrad 14 years ago, no one knew anything about it. People knew a little bit about brains, but it was still the wild, wild west. Like we might as well be exploring space because for every theory that existed, there was an equal competing theory on how the brain worked because no one knew how the brain worked. And so even this idea of I can see visuals or I can't see visuals. When I read a book, I hear other people's voices or I hear my own voice or I only process the words without any auditory. We all read books differently.
That's so crazy.
I know. We don't even think about that.
How do I read a book? I don't know. I got to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't read smut primarily.
Slam.
But primarily because for me, it's a very clinical, dry experience.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you're not imagining. You're not in the world.
Not imagining.
Oh, girl, I'm falling in love with my books.
I have done that. I used to be obsessed with this childhood series where it was like when I was a teenager, like teenagers falling in love and then one of them dying of cancer. That was like, my genre. My kind of romance. And
of course it would involve death.
You
wacko.
I know. So it is an experience where I know that I can connect to characters, but I think I already have to have like some of the lived experience for it to connect because my imagination is not.
What about an audiobook? Are you down on an audiobook or no?
I can do nonfiction. So I tend to lean nonfiction and I can't do fiction. I'm trying. I've tried multiple times now, but because I don't get immersed into the world, I get very distracted by literally anything else in the house. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I wasn't paying attention to the last 10 minutes.
You really got to find your way in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have read fiction, so I know that it's possible, but it's harder for me to get, I don't know, like caught up in it, or I don't do it to escape my world necessarily because I don't escape anywhere. But that's just because of the way that my brain, I don't have like sound or vision or any.
Interesting. I never thought about my relationship to reading as a clairvoyant, but I guess perhaps that is what I'm up to when I'm reading is I'm like totally immersed in I'm like in the movie.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
No, I have to watch the movie version.
Well, hopefully we'll get some of them. I mean, they're working on it.
I know.
Talking about my Throne of Glass girlies and my A Court of Thorns and Roses, and we're waiting on Fourth Wing. I mean, we're waiting on them all.
I'm always curious about what it feels like for people to channel, because so many people do channel and don't know that that's what's happening. Or a lot of people channel and they very much know that it's happening because they hear my husband can literally hear voices and see, he's immersed into a world. Like if he's writing a movie, for him, it's like a planet that he goes to. And then in that world, he can look around and see what the characters are having for lunch and then see a scene play out while someone's sitting at the table. And then he just has to record what he's witnessing.
Yeah.
And so that feels very channeled because at no point does it feel like I'm creating this world. I'm just witnessing and reporting back.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Very
I feel like I
envious of
do
that.
that a little bit when I'm editing. I can kind of visualize usually the film before it's on the timeline. And it's not perfect. It's not like a carbon copy. But I do feel like something I do while I'm shooting is try to edit in my mind while I'm going.
Wow.
Yeah.
I edit and I have a different experience where because it's outside of my body, I feel like I can work it. And all of my instincts artistically are just gut, where I sense timing in a really interesting way. And so I just know when it is. And a lot of times I'm even pulled to like cut certain things without knowing why. And then I've learned, I think this is just part of how I channel the rhythm of like the music of something.
Cool.
It feels like that dance and I don't know why I'm doing it. And I can't be like, technically I'm cutting it right here because of the rule of thirds or, like
it's
I can't.
All about gut feeling though, editing. It's all instinct. It's all intuition and I think you're right about the rhythm and the flow of something is so important.
Yes.
I'm wondering what other tips we can give people about kind of connecting to spirit through their work or how to kind of start that dialogue.
Yeah. Well, is there a practice that you use? You mentioned that you will meditate and write down questions.
Yeah. Something else I do is I've been known to make an altar for a project and leave kind of little talisman like around my house. And I will say for our project, The Hidden History of Magic, we have kind of adapted a disco ball as kind of like one of our visual cues. That's a sign from spirit if we see it. And I do have little disco balls kind of sprinkled now around my house. And I have one of these planters that's half disco ball. And when the light hits it, I'll spin it and I'll try to make a wish.
Ooh.
So I'm trying to like interact with it a little bit. And I will say for my book, I had for quite a while a beautiful altar that was other books that I wanted to support my book in the world. So I picked like a couple of books that have inspired me and impacted me. And I almost asked them to be like guides for my book. And so creating an altar is a really nice way visually for you to kind of just touch base with kind of your dreams and your goals physically. I'm a Taurus, and so I love physical things and beauty and items and like holding something in my hand. And so altars are a really nice way to kind of build something physically in the earth realm that you can see that will remind you of something.
Ooh, I love that. I even love this idea of having little spirit guides for your project where it's the inspiration.
Yeah.
Because in a way, that is what inspiration is, right? It's this ancestor in the lineage of the work that you're creating. Because when we talk about art, I mean, I can even talk about stand-up comedy this way, is that there are very clear lineages that I can trace in someone's style of stand-up, where I can go, oh, they're influenced by this person, or they must have come out of this city because of the way that, because of the ancestors, the people that came before them. And so art does have lineage and inspiration. I mean, that's part of the controversy with Hilma, right? She not only was the ancestor in a very specific lineage of abstraction, but even the people who were erased before her, who were part of this mediumistic art, that she didn't invent even that. She's part of a larger lineage that was predominantly women, so it didn't exist in the art world.
It's so crazy just that the way that we allow stories about certain things to just completely define culture.
I know.
It's wild.
It is. But it gives us really juicy stuff to talk about and think about. So maybe people who are invisible are planting seeds for future conversations, and they get this resurgence. And we know that there's life after death. and that she can experience and feel the success.
Well, yeah. And I mean, we talk a lot about how time isn't real, but we are a very time-bound culture right now. And
Yes.
we wouldn't have been able to really appreciate and know and see and feel her in the way that we can understand her now. You know, she was a woman ahead of her time in so many ways. And so that's such an interesting contract to make with the universe, to be like, to come down, be one of the greatest abstract artists of your time. Spirit is going to flow through you, but you are not going to be able to have, you're not going to be seen.
Yeah.
It's just part of what's going to happen.
Well, and I think that's the value of connecting to spirit or connecting to the larger inspiration or divinity and seeing yourself as a vessel where a genius can flow through and not the pressure that I have to be a genius. I have to be the best at my craft. I am ahead of my time and I'm revolutionizing this thing. That's a lot of pressure when the world isn't responding that way. But when you know, I feel like we talked about this with Oprah too, and we're going to talk about this in the future with Veronica Woodhull. But when you know that what is flowing through you is bigger than you, and it must have purpose or be purpose, then it's so much easier to create it in the face of whatever response or non-response happens, because you know that knowing that comes from divinity or whatever. I feel like that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to like self-doubt or, I don't know, even like fears of frivolity or all of that. Like there's something about that knowing. And so even just the practice of meditating with your art or having an altar and allowing it to be bigger than you. I love this idea because it does take the pressure off. Maybe it'll make me delusional because I'm like, this is from God, or it's like so much bigger than me or whatever. But maybe delusion is what I need in this moment to allow it to happen.
Yeah, sometimes it's just about being satiated with a calm and a peace. And I think being connected to meditation or your guides can provide that for you. You know, thinking about this thing where I was feeling disconnected with my book, and then I checked in with my guides and they were like, this. And I said, okay, great. Now I can take a deep breath. You know, giving yourself permission to just feel calm about the whole chaos of it. And something you said in our first WitchTV, which has really stayed with me, is like, we, you know, think so much that everything is for our human experience, for our human friends. Well, like, what if my book was written for the trees?
Oh, yes.
You know, what if it's for them? and that's all it is, you know? Or yes. So I like this idea too of working with the unseen realms and being witnessed in other ways.
That's true. I love that. Channeling art specifically in these times is definitely its own. Because Leonardo da Vinci had a benefactor, you know what I mean?
Well, we're happy to receive a benefactor if they're out there.
Yes. Bring back benefactors. That's what we need to figure out. Marketing people, we need to figure out how to make being a benefactor for artists cool again. Because that was like all the rage back during the Renaissance. And look at all the art we got from it.
Absolutely. And I think also, you know, Bashar says this all the time, that everybody wants a ticket to Earth right now. Like we are at such a pinnacle point of consciousness and awakening and destruction and old, you know, beliefs crumbling and falling. And really the art that comes out of this is like what's going to be studied for decades to come. Like people are going to be like, what were these folks up to? Because this was quite a time in history.
Yes. And you know what I think about a lot? Because this is true. And I forget it when I'm going through really long stretches of hard times. Everything can kind of change overnight with one idea. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like maybe one day you're bored and you pick up a pencil and then do something with that. That experience, that feeling, that thought, that inspiration, the lightning, everything can change overnight if we let it.
I love that.
Yeah. So I want to keep reminding myself that it just takes one moment. I think that's what a lot of people are calling timeline jumping too, right? But it is that flash of inspiration is when you find that thing. Like even Oprah, it wasn't until she sat down and interviewed her first person, and she already had a career in news. But when she sat down in that interview chair, it was that feeling, that knowing, that lightning strike of, oh, this is my purpose. And I think being open to allowing everything to change overnight, if we want, through some lightning strike of inspiration, is a really helpful practice of like surrendering to that alone without it having to be like, oh, I'm going to put in the hours, put in the work.
Yeah. And I will just add that the fastest way to do that is to really change your routine. So if you want a timeline jump and you want to get inspiration and you want to kind of rock your mind into kind of moving to the next thing, you have to break up your, like if you take, you drive your car to work every single day, like you've got a bike. You've got to step out of, you've got to go on a trip. You've got to really step out of your everyday because your mind is so conditioned to be in the timeline and to continue the routine that you've got to really at every point of your day try to like really switch it up.
Yes.
And that will shake and rock your mind into like, wait a minute.
Oh, I will say too that
cut those bangs.
Yes. Cut bangs, try a new lipstick, play hooky. I feel like the more pressure I feel, or the more that I feel like, but that's bad, but that's irresponsible, the more I have to do it for like just a minute. Even if it's just, I don't necessarily think that I could quit my job and fly to another country because I'm like, well, I have children and I have groceries and inflation. And there are certain things where within my current life would be too hard to go crazy. But I can make a very bold choice and ask a relative stranger if they want to do a podcast with me, or you know what I mean? Or I can, instead of going to work and focusing and staying home and being remote all day, I can go and have a glass of wine and people watch for an hour or 2 hours instead. The more I feel like, ooh, this is bad, the more it kind of also breaks those beliefs, because then when nothing bad happens, and it was like, oh, I had a really lovely day and no one died. Nothing. I have OCD, so I really am like, so no one died. I didn't get in trouble. I didn't lose everything. I'm not currently homeless because I spent an afternoon doing a small thing that felt exciting. Then it opens me up to releasing so tightly this really dangerous negative belief.
I love that. I'm so curious for people who are listening to kind of write in their hacks, their creative hacks that get them, feeling inspired and gorgeous and, in the flow of things. I want to hear people's stories. And if they're up to any, spell work or, making something kind of interesting with their art, I'd love to hear those stories too. You can email us at hiddenhistoryofmagickpodcast @gmail.com, or you can find us on Patreon, send us a DM. Find us on Instagram. We want to hear your stories.
Yeah, I want to hear your hacks. What does it feel like to you? What does it sound like to you? How does creativity flow through you? I will say that, nope, I lost it. Never mind.
I also want to know people's favorite Hilma painting.
Oh, yes.
If they just have a favorite and they want to comment. I want to know what, I'm debating buying either the Swan, which I feel very drawn to, or there's another one called Adulthood, which is purple.
Ooh.
And I'm very drawn to that one. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to put my coins in.
Ooh, very fun. Something that's really fun about art, and something that we've become a little bit disconnected from as we move more into our head and intellectualize everything and have to talk about everything on the internet and think about everything on the internet. And I don't know, there's so much language. There's so much language. I think we were having a private conversation about this. Oh, when it came to channeling. So it's relevant, I guess. There's so much language and talking about stuff that we're locked into this very hyper intellectual way of being in the world. And even this idea of like, what painting am I called to is such a feeling, like a heart feeling, a gut feeling. And so there's something really beautiful about what are the ways that we can allow our heart space and our gut space to be pulled and magnetized towards, that thing that's calling us. Because I think the thing that's calling us is ourselves. It's alignment. We're like a compass, right? And when we feel these magnetic pulls, it's we're going into alignment and figuring out who we truly are. And there's something about over intellectualizing or something about language that interferes with the magnet.
Well, we've been taught to ignore it for so long.
Yes.
So I think what you said is such a beautiful description of kind of trusting yourself in that inner voice or that inner knowing or that feeling. And it's funny, you're right. Like art can just bring that out intuitively, instinctually.
Yeah. Even that feeling of
a favorite painting is not an intellectual pursuit.
No.
To know it and feel it and see it and decide.
And you may not be able to say why you prefer this one over the other. It's just, I do.
Yeah. I love it. Well, this was such a beautiful conversation. I'm excited to hear what our listeners have to say about their creative energy.
Yes.
And it was such a pleasure to talk about it. I feel like I could talk about creativity for 100 years. I love kind of the intertwining of spirituality and creativity. And I will also just say one other note. And I know she's a controversial figure at this moment in time, but I really love Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magick.
Oh, yes.
It's one of my favorite books about creativity. And I think it fills in a lot of gaps that we're talking about. So if you're kind of curious about this conversation, want to go a little deeper, I think that's a great resource.
Yeah. Or even her TED Talk about having a genius versus being a genius. I used to teach that TED Talk in my writing workshops because it's 20 minutes. It's so perfect. It's to promote Big Magick anyway. So yeah, you can go deeper into the book. And I think that Elizabeth Gilbert is this great example, and why she's a controversial figure is because the human Elizabeth Gilbert is controversial. And she's channeling something that I think is real and feels real. And what she has to say is like, to me, the more chaotic she is as a human is just more proof that she's like channeling something else from somewhere else. That's not her brain, but very beautiful resource.
Yeah, a good one. I love it. Well, thanks guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to The Hidden History of Magic. If you like the show, please rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. This show is produced by Rhiannon Houch and Erin Bagwell. A very special thanks to our patrons who make this podcast possible.
To join our coven of gorgeous witches, get bonus episodes, attend live events, and learn real magic inspired by each episode, join us on Patreon.
If you would like your own personal reading from Rhiannon or Erin, check out our links in the show notes. Until next time.